Trav, and we are off to a new interview, I believe, in not too long.
Thank you, Beth. I'm here with Frankie Riley, who's also running for the role of York Sport Union President. Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you this evening?
Yeah, pretty good. It's been quite an intense evening, but
Yeah, it always is.
yeah, it's been really fun starting the campaign and,
Yeah.
you know, round 2 this time, so
Absolutely.
but different to the first time, so really enjoying
Well,
it.
let's talk about one of the things that is sort of in common, I think, in both elections, which is we're talking a lot about college sport.
Yeah.
And college sport, some people feeling that it's been forgotten or that it's not been given the attention it deserves. Are they right?
No, absolutely not. I completely disagree. I do agree that there are still problems we need to address, and that's the same at the university level as well. It's across the entire system. I wrote down recently everything that we've done for college sport, from introducing the website, from introducing the activator role. We're doing a college sport newsletter. We're introducing college sport awards at the end of this year. So much has happened, and actually I can see how people think that it is forgotten, but I think actually one of the biggest challenges I've had this year is that it's a great challenge to have. We've got a new UC staff member whose job is 90% like college sport logistics all the time now. And I've had a real challenge trying to figure out, how do I now actually fit with college sport? Because if they need anything, they mostly just go to them, because they sort out all of those logistical and admin issues. And sometimes I think they forget that I'm still here and want to really push these initiatives through.
But what you're saying, and we heard it from Ashraf just then, is that, you know, college sport feels like it's centred around the bigger sports, right? That it feels like we're missing out sports. You said a year ago, you know, you wanted to make sure all college sports heard and represented. Are we still focused on the rugbies and footballs? Are we still focused on those bigger sports in college sport?
No, I definitely don't think so. We've brought in new storage lockers for college sport, with the whole idea of being, well, you know what, your rugby, your football, your netball, they're pretty much set up with a lot of the equipment they have. They've still got a few things missing, but they're pretty much set up and good to go because they've been self-funded and they've been doing all of this all the time. But there's no communal squash rackets. There's no communal badminton rackets. They're having to self-fund a lot, but they're smaller and they have less members and therefore less membership sort of coming their way. So what we're doing is we put in a massive U-Fund bid that was successful. We've built those lockers and we're now about to stock them full of equipment as well for all of those smaller sports and the kind of more niche ones and the ones that wouldn't be your main ones. So no, I don't think so at all.
Okay, let's talk about the manifesto this time round. And you talk about the future of clubs. And what really struck out to me, I suppose, is for you as a women's rugby player, you spoke about sort of integrating gendered sports into centralised clubs. So
Yes.
Is this something you've spoken to people about? Is this something that you've had pushback on? What's the benefit?
I'm aware this could be a very controversial topic, and that's why I'm very much leaning into this is a consultation. Okay, I would love, my outcome would be that we no longer have gendered sports anymore. So we don't have men's rugby, we don't have women's rugby. We just have the University of York Rugby Club with men's and women's teams. Now, on my campaign team are representatives from each of these clubs. And before I asked them to be on the campaign team, I was feeling out with them. I was like, look, this is an idea. I don't want you to stand behind something like that you're not behind. And really, it's one of those things that if they're not bought in, if they're not on board with it, it's never going to work. And I've spoken to some of them. There has been pushback from one club. I won't name who, but it's not been pushback in that, no, we don't agree with the principle of it. They just can't quite see how it works, but they want a better relationship with their counterpart club and they want to work towards that. And that's the whole point, is that people get to decide on what level they want to do this. But other than that, it's been overwhelmingly positive.
So people say, though, if you've got a sport that is in numbers played by many more men than women at the university, and you combine the clubs, then you sort of take away that important, particular voice for women's sport, for the women's sports where they have their individual clubs at the moment. How do you change that if you have that imbalance?
I completely see your point, but I have to disagree. I think the system, the way it's set up now, there are actually so many microaggressions in it that people don't realise. It frustrates me so much when I'm sending emails and I'm sending an email to rugby at USU and then women's rugby at USU. It's either men's rugby, women's rugby, or just rugby. There is no distinction between the sport that we play. The way Bucks is set up, it's set up in the way that it's rugby union. It's not men's rugby union, it's not women's rugby union. And I kick myself every time someone asks me what sport I play and I say I play women's rugby. I don't, I just play rugby. There's no difference. So why are we still gendering? And it's so off-putting to students who identify as non-binary, who are transitioning or are transgender, and there's so much scope to do work in this space that I think it's just such an important move to make.
And you talk about the inclusion of transgender and non-binary people there. And it's something you speak about in your manifesto as well.
Yep.
We don't have a plan on it yet. And I remember we spoke about it for the first time in the summer.
Yep.
And we're in February.
Yes.
What's happened?
It's been a challenge. I do have to be honest. It has been a challenge. There's been a lot of research going into it. We're starting to take those steps to move forward with it. It's been one of those things that was kind of brought on my radar whilst I was in the role. So it wasn't quite there at the start, and then it's been developing over time. Sadly, I know there's been a lot of talk about this during the elections so far, particularly with Noose. Our disability students officers stepping down from their role, that was a big blow to the project, but I am determined to still see it through, and I want to do it almost for their legacy, because I know it was something they were hugely passionate about, and I am too. But it was a challenge overcoming that, but we are taking steps. I've got a doodle poll together that we're going to send out to all the PTOs to get everyone on board, and I'm really keen to get the PTOs who are now outgoing and the incoming ones all together to work on it as well, to make sure that we've got as many voices as possible. And myself and my equal opportunities officer are going to schedule in a trip to Nottingham. We're hoping over the Easter holiday, as they are a leader in disability sport at the university level. So there are steps that are happening, but it's the reality of the fact that also the elections are halfway through my actual year in the role. So there's only so much progress I can have made on certain things. And the first 6 months has very much been about getting sport back, getting students back into the rhythm, getting things set up. And there's been a lot of challenges coming out of COVID with that.
And let's talk about some of the things you want to go forward. And you mentioned it, and we heard about it in Beth's interview with Ashraf just then, about discounted gym memberships for club members. How do we achieve that? Where does that funding come from? How can we get the university on board? What are you going to do to make that happen?
Well, it's something that York Sport have already brought to us. So they're on board with it. And I think it's one of those things that we can basically say it's attached to that AU fee. And it might be that maybe we increase the AU fee by £1 or £2. That's a much smaller increase. But if we can decrease the gym membership so that it is comparable with things like the gym group that have come into the town and that are now so popular with students, that's one part of it. I'm also looking to work with York Sport to actually make sure that their promotional windows fit with students, because currently they don't. I remember when it came to Freshers Week this year, they had a kind of, I think it was a promotion that was something like 12 months for the price of 10, but it finished on the first day of Freshers Week. And I was thinking surely that's a bit counterproductive. Like, you want the students to come in to see the facilities, to make their decision. So I don't know if we'll ever quite be able to meet the gym group's offering, but I truly believe we are actually inherently a different offering. We staff in different ways. We have more support available. We have, I think, sort of higher spec kit. We've just done a £500,000 refurb on West. So we are a different offering, but I know that is something that York Sport are willing to do. We've had conversations about it already, and we know that we can do it.
And so in your mind, that sort of increase in the cost of club membership does make sense, even if you're sort of adding something that maybe people want to use other gyms. People might say, oh, I don't want to use the York gym, but I'm paying for it. What would you say to them?
I'm only looking at that if we have to. My absolute ideal would be that we can just offer the discounted membership. It's, as I say, it's something York Sport have indicated they want to do. They're on board with it. Anything I can do that's just, we're just going to make sport more affordable, then we can look at doing that. We do still have some funding left over, and I'm not saying this is a set deal, but we do still have some funding left over from our expanded activities access grant that we're looking at how can we continue to make sport available for students, and we're looking into that. So that could also be another possible avenue that we do that down. And I am, another part of my manifesto that links into this is I am looking to introduce a York Sport Union sponsor. If needed, that could be something where we can draw the funds from as well.
And I suppose that ties in, and I've only got 30 seconds left, but you talk about introducing, manager officer, health and safety officer, development programs societies need support, and now you're saying, York Sports Union sponsorship. Clubs might say, you're taking this away from us, you're taking that responsibility, that control away from us into York Sport Union. Why do you need to do that?
I don't think it's necessarily something that has to be done, but we have seen that first aid reporting, for example, is far off what it should be. And this isn't about taking control away. It's about giving more students opportunities. This is another role for a student to be like, I want to go for that, and I'm going to gain the skills from doing this. And the York Sport Union sponsor is designed to help with that performance sport as well. Thank
you, Frank. I've got to interrupt you there. We're going to head over to Studio Red for our final York Sport Union president candidate.
Hello, I'm joined